Disney's Encanto follows Mirabel, the only member of her family that has not received any magical abilities as the rest of her family has. These powers are referred to as gifts, and Mirabel is sadly the only one lacking a gift. But despite that, she still tries as hard as she can to fit into her otherwise extraordinary family. These efforts almost seem pointless for the most part though, as the rest of the family has basically become reliant on their magic. You see, the Madrigal family has had their powers for quite some time, with them originating from Abuela's prayers as she fled her home almost 50 years ago, and further embodied by a magical candle that sits atop a ledge in their magical casita. The candle that Abuela prayed to not only gave her family impressive gifts, but an even more impressive house. And since that day all of those years ago, the family hasn't been without magic or their magical casita. Both have become a clear part of the Madrigal family's identity. And while this sounds like a good thing, it isn't all sunshine and rainbows, especially for those in the family who are without these powers, aka Mirabel. You see, in the movie, Abuela had a hard time looking past anything that wasn't magical. Her family basically becomes just their gifts in her eyes, and Mirabel just kind of gets pushed to the side since she doesn't have one. And even when Mirabel has important information to tell everyone, Abuela doesn't really pay it any mind. In fact, Mirabel was the first in her family to notice that the casita was beginning to crack, and even though she attempted to warn Abuela Alma about it, no one listened, and the tragedy consequently surprised all of them. And after being dismissed, Mirabel, the only member without a gift, proved herself to be the only sensible one in the family and began investigating for herself. This is what made her decide to search Bruno's room, where she started to find the answers that she needed in order to save them all. This is when she discovers those shards of glowing glass with etching in them that showed her the vision that Bruno kept seeing. The casita crumbles to the ground with Mirabel standing front and center, giving off the appearance that the downfall of the Madrigal's home would somehow be Mirabel's fault. She's clearly unable to interpret what this vision really means, only that it is her fault for the Madrigal's and Casita's downfall. Despite this ominous discovery, she continues on her mission to save her family and their home. And as we know, she does of course end up finding Bruno, who had actually still been in the house the whole time. This is when he explains that he left because his dark vision kept changing and he didn't know what to do anymore. So basically, the Madrigals, along with us, the audience, are led to believe that the destruction that is apparently going to befall the casita was going to be caused in some way by Mirabel. This is also further reinforced when the casita does in fact crumble. Despite this, Bruno and Mirabel do work together, and using Bruno's gift and Mirabel's positive mindset, the two pushed past that horrible vision and experienced something that was odd for the both of them. Bruno finally managed to envision something that wasn't a bad future, and Mirabel got to see the vision of her hugging Isabella, her older sister, which visibly confused Mirabel, as she mentions that she and Isabella tended to not get along too well. And of course, as we find out a bit later on, even that vision wasn't the whole story or solution for the Madrigals. It was more of a symbolic representation of the solution. In reality, the vision was trying to tell Bruno and Mirabel to bring the family together again, to unify them rather than divide them. Using the analogy of Mirabel and Isabella hugging to solve a more minor problem, the vision was basically telling them that the family has to come together, because that is not only when the Madrigals are at their best, but also when they are with the most magic. And in essence, in order to unify them all, it was up to Mirabel to ensure that her family realized that there was so much more to them than just their gifts, as amazing as they are. She even manages to convince them that they can bring their house back without any magic, as long as they work together. And that's exactly what happened. All of the Madrigals and all of the townsfolk got together and rebuilt the beautiful home. And of course, once they finished the foundation for their home, their magic was restored to them once again. Only now, they knew that their identities were so much more than just their powers. Now, the whole point of this video is to explain the actual cause of Casita's downfall, not who saved the magic. The movie would have us believe that it was completely Mirabel's fault, and in an indirect way, it actually was, which we will explain later on in the video. But in order to completely understand the deep concepts we will be exploring in this video, you may want to reference our previous video on Encanto and what we believe Mirabel's gift actually was. And for the record, we actually do think she received powers of sorts, despite what the movie has led most to believe. Basically, we think that Casita blessed her with the embodiment of the candle. You can check out the link below if you want to see our reasoning and explanation behind that theory. But for the purpose of this video, our question does not lie in what Mirabel's gifts are. Our question becomes what, or who, caused Casita to break apart in the first place. One thing to note about this movie is that, interestingly enough, there is no main antagonist or bad guy in the film. film. The only thing that could be considered a form of an antagonist would be the unknown threat to the family's magic, which is very interesting because despite there being no actual villain in the film, there was something they were all fighting against, and it ended up stemming from one particular and very surprising family member. And in order to understand who and what was the actual cause of this devastation, we need to trace the series of events that led to the downfall, as well as the reinterpretation of some of the events that took place prior to Casita's ultimate demise, because contrary to popular belief, it was not Mirabel's fault. While, as we said, there was seemingly no antagonist, we the audience were led to believe that Mirabel was somehow involved in the destruction of the Casita. That would almost make her somewhat of an antagonist, although she is the one who managed to get everyone to work together and save their home in the end. Or, in other words, we are led to believe that Mirabel was the original cause to the Casita crumbling and the solution to making it not break down. Kind of confusing when you first think about it, but not so much when you ask the next right question. Such as, if Mirabel was the cause of the house's initial cracks, what did she actually do in order to start that deconstruction? Not hug Isabella enough? Probably not. Like we said, that vision was more of a symbolic representation of what the entire family needed to do in order to save themselves, which was to unite and love each other for who they really were. And that's actually all Mirabel tried to do throughout the film. She provided the hope, specifically when all seemed lost. She was the only one in that family who could see the light through the darkness, embody the candle as we described in our previous video. And that hope that she provided was a direct cause to the family uniting as one and accepting each other for who they really were. Never in the movie did Mirabel try and tear the family apart, directly or indirectly. Her personal qualities didn't really allow for that to happen in the film. In fact, if it weren't for her, Bruno would have probably never been a part of the family again, and Casita would have never been rebuilt. So basically, Mirabel was the solution, but she was not the direct problem in the first place. She was the house's solution to the problem rather than the problem itself. Some viewers believe that Bruno was the problem and that his visions caused the family to start becoming more distant in the first place. But remember, all he did was simply have visions and share what he saw. It was the family who chose to interpret them as they did, which ended up leading to their hope faltering. So the question is, if Mirabel wasn't the original problem and Bruno wasn't the original problem, then who is? Well, as it would turn out, Abuela Alma is the whole reason that the family found themselves in this big mess in the first place. In the whole movie, it's easy to tell that Mirabel is treated as lesser than everyone else because of the fact that she doesn't have a gift of her own. And the family would like us to think that Bruno was estranged because of something he did wrong, when in reality, Bruno was a victim of the family's mistreatment as well. He didn't do anything wrong, but because they didn't like the visions that he had no control over, they made him feel like a monster. And a lot of that stems from Abuela. Now, one thing to make clear is the fact that Abuela didn't destroy the magic with malice in her heart. Rather, she did it accidentally when she was trying to hold on too tightly to the gifts that her family was given. And her tight grasp on them made it hard for her to see her children as anything other than the embodiment of their magical abilities. I mean, as you know, she and her husband created the candle in the first place, both with her prayer and his sacrifice providing hope to light the way. Hence why she, much like Mirabel, also had never been granted a gift of her own. Her purpose was to keep her family together, unified and strong, thus keeping the magic alive. But when she tried too hard to do that by focusing on the magic, she ended up pushing the family apart even though she didn't realize it. Whether she meant to or not, she made it so her family would feel worthless without their gifts, since at this point in the film, their magic had become their whole identity. And some fans of the movie would even say that Abuela's love for her family was conditional, having it mostly being based on their gifts, and I would have to agree. But what I don't agree with is that people think that the way she treated her family was the reason that their home was crumbling. It's more likely that she caused the house to fall apart when she began to lose her grip on the hope that her husband left her with. The second that she began to waver, so did the magic in the candle. And that is where Mirabel comes in, as the solution to her family's problems. Her whole life she had been full of hope and kindness. Therefore, when her family needed that hope the most, she was right there to provide it and save her family in the darkest hour. And Mirabel being the hopeful solution to her family's crisis might also give us some insight as to not only her gift and how it saved the magic, but also its indirect cause to Casita's cracks. As mentioned before, our earlier video discussing Encanto talked about how we believe that Mirabel might be the embodiment of the candle itself, basically the magic itself. And we believe that the candle was created from Abuela's prayer and Pedro's sacrifice, wherein he provided hope for the family. Hope and prayer created the magic, and the candle not only represented the magic, but also became the life force of the Casita. When Mirabel came of age, Casita actually blessed her with embodiment of the candle, embodiment of the magic. She had the most hope and positive action in the family. Therefore, embodiment fit her perfectly. So what this illustrates is actually how Mirabel was the indirect cause of Casita to start breaking apart, not the direct cause. You see, it all began to go downhill when Abuela's fear of losing her family caused her to grasp tightly onto her family's gifts, rather than the actual family members themselves. And this started way before Mirabel received her embodiment gift, probably around the time that Bruno started to become estranged from the family. And Casita sensed the weakness that was growing from this fear, and the way that Abuela was acting. So, knowing that it needed some way to keep the family together, Casita knew that it would need to give someone in the family a gift that could save everybody. And who could be more worthy of this gift than Mirabel, who has shown the qualities of someone who cares about others and can unify them since she was young, thus blessing her with the embodiment power, essentially making her the candle of the family. Meanwhile, Bruno's vision that saw Mirabel as the reason that the house fell was merely a vision of her losing hope after being mistreated by Abuela for not being special. So in the end, if you were to identify any type of antagonist in the film, it would have to be Abuela's fear of losing loved ones, causing a loss of hope, and therefore a loss of magic. No matter how you look at it, Encanto is just another example of how Disney has mastered the ability to create conflict without a physical antagonist, and instead by using character flaws in the protagonist that end up leading to the conflict. It's a really interesting formula, but clearly it works for them and we absolutely love it. So, what did you guys think of Disney's Encanto now that you have hopefully been able to see it? Be sure to let us know in the comments down below. And for now, that's all, Disney fans! Let us know what video you'd like to see next in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more magically packed videos.